we ready to begin?
Good on this side.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Ryan. Are you ready?
Yeah, I said I'm good on this side.
Okay, so this says old business if time allows. So do we go right on to new business? And we'll start
Yeah,
with.
yeah, when we have presenters, we let them start.
All right, go ahead, Guzman.
All right.
You have the floor.
All right. So since I'm running off here, I won't stand up. I'll stay sitting. Everyone's okay with that. So thank you all for having us here today. Just want to talk about Guzman Energy and then also about the opportunity for municipalization. So hopefully through this process, and you'll see a slide here. It's not to inundate you guys with a bunch of information that is propaganda or trying to push you down one direction. It's educational. The city needs to decide what path they want to take. So Black Hills, core cooperative, or down a municipalization path. So that's my goal today is, again, tell a little bit about Guzman, just so you know who we are, and then give you as much background and details as we can of the three different options that are on the table for the city.
I'm sorry, could we just real quick just do some
Yep, sure.
introductions? Just so you get an idea of who we can start, or you guys want to start? So I'm Jeff Hite with Guzman Energy. Just a little bit of a background. Kathy and I worked together at Xcel Energy for many, many years. Not too far.
Some of us
That's
longer
right,
than
some
others.
more than that. I was like there for 29 years. Then I left Guzman Energy and went to work for Black Hills for a while, their marketing arm called Encirco, Wisconsin Public Service. So joined Guzman Energy about 7 years ago when we first started. I was employee number 3. And since then, we've grown. Good company. So nice to meet you all.
I'm Andrew Heinley, Managing Director at Guzman. I have about 25 years industry. I'm Jeff for probably 20 of that. I've been pretty much all in the Midwest. Worked at MISO and MAPCOR before that. Black Hills Power for about 6 years. I was actually sitting on the desk, on the real-time desk, when the power got switched over for Cheyenne and for Pueblo. So did that, and then I went for work for an energy management firm called Tenaska Power Services in Texas for about 6 years, helping them open up their West trading origination. And then I started with Guzman in November of last year.
I'm Del Bush, better known as Mr. Emily Tracy. She invited me to come and sounded interesting, so I'm just observing.
Hi, John Vigil with Black Hills Energy. I'm a community affairs manager.
Doug Cohen, citizen.
Kathy Worthington, retired Xcel area manager and part of this committee.
Kirk Souther, part of the energy committee.
Emily Tracy, part of the Energy Committee and council member elect. Say that.
Congratulations.
I'm Carol Dunn, part of the Energy Committee and a longtime Kansas City resident.
Steve Andrews, I am not a member of the energy committee, just a member of the interested public.
Brandon Smith, City Council at Large.
And I'm Ryan Stevens. I'm the city administrator, currently going through COVID protocols.
Oh. Sorry to hear that. That's
Good luck,
not fun.
Ryan.
Yeah,
If it's worth anything, you sound better.
yeah. Were you immunized or vaccine?
Yeah, I had the vaccine, but I still got it.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry to hear that. I apologize for not doing the introductions initially here.
That's fine.
So there's a little bit about Guzman. So we're a full service wholesale power provider. We're working with co-ops, communities, and tribes, primarily in throughout the Rockies region. We'll have some slides showing you who our current customers are. We have significant experience in our group. We have Kurt Hager, also from Excel. He did all the renewables, or most of the renewables and transmission for Excel. Steve Boyning, he's also an advisor, used to work at Excel, like Jeff mentioned. And we also have ex-FERC attorney that was on our staff doing a lot of our origination and strategy. And probably one of the key points that sets us apart from a lot of other power marketers is we have our own 24/7 internal desk, and it's managed by Max Carpenter. He has over 20 years of utility experience. Most recently, he managed the operations and desk over at SoCal Edison. So one of the top 5 largest utilities in in the nation. He's now working, he works for Guzman. I think it's going on 2 years now, and he manages all the operations. So why that's important, our number one objective is serving load. It's not out there speculating the market or putting on hedges. It's really serving the customer. And we're focused on creating solutions that are customized to specific customer needs. It's not a one size fits all. It's very uniquely customized for each customer. And as we go through the slides, you'll see some of the examples that we're talking about. So right now, we are serving about 500 megawatts of load. Plan to grow. Let me see if I can move that so you guys can see later years. Plan to grow to over 600 by, or going to have 600 by 2028 with a hope for anticipated growth by over 1,000 megawatts of new contracts that we plan to have line of sight to that are either in contracting or significant negotiations. Our first customer being Kit Carson Electric. They've been with us since about 2016, and we serve them all their loads. We allow them 100% renewable during the day as part of the agreement. When I mentioned earlier, customized, that's really what we do for them. Delta Montrose, we help them also exit Tri-State. This last year, they experienced 2 times the revenue in just a half a year going with our power supply versus their old one. Most recent, we just signed City of Raton. Started serving them in June of this year, and Arkansas River Power Authority. We're actually got approval from our board and their board, and we should be finalizing that contract within the next month. And that's pretty much, so Arkansas River's 6 cities south of here. That's to give you an idea of geography. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm not sure if I can get this thing out. We're a 24/7 operation shop. We handle the forecasting, scheduling, all the tagging, everything that you need for reliable power service. We do it in-house. Energy imbalance, the back office settlements, environmental products, also compliance with the state. We assist with all those things, and we do it all in-house with our team. We have an in-house meteorologist to help with forecasting for our renewables, and also for planning for weather conditions like a polar vortex, or different situations where we need weather to help serve our customers. I really view this as an extension of our customer. Instead of the customer having to do this themselves, times of scale, we were able to bring it all in-house, do it for multiple ones, and be able to get some benefits there. So the resource supply plan. We are in the process of building about 1,000 megawatts across Colorado and New Mexico area. We do believe in steel in the ground assets, thermal, renewable, battery storage, and that's what I consider 3 legs. That's one leg of the stool, having real assets. We're not just out there putting on positions in the market and then trying to hedge them and move them back and forth to supply load. Also, another key point is your operations and marketing. Having an in-house 24/7. When I say in-house, that means you have skin in the game. You actually have someone that is operating and managing your load, alternative to like using a third-party service provider. Similar to where I used to be at Tenasca Power, they used to be an energy management firm. They are an energy management firm, and they do third-party energy management. So having in-house, I think, provides a lot of benefits, better reliability, more knowledge of your system, and actually a more caring attitude to make sure you serve yourselves. Regional transmission, I think, is another big one. Steel on the ground in marketing is 2 big pieces, but having regional transmission and expertise to be able to bring power from outside the region is another key point. We own long-term transmission from the Northwest as well as across the DC ties into the Colorado area. And that's primarily to serve our customers in the events of a polar vortex or there's a shortage of energy in the region. We're able to bring it in. So I think that's what I call my 3 legs of the stool for load reliability. And most parties will have 1, maybe 2. There's not very many that do the transmission investment because it is expensive. And if you don't use it for load, then you have to try to figure out if there's arbitrage or anything like that. And as you guys can see in the market, sometimes there is, sometimes there's not. So it's a cost that we incur because of reliable delivery.
Some of us understood what you said, but I'm sure that there's a lot here
Sorry,
that
yeah.
you might like to
Yeah.
bring it down to English.
Okay, so for the transmission, is that mostly for the
Yeah.
transmission? So right now, in the Colorado, New Mexico is what I would consider kind of a constrained area. You're not able to move power in and out real easy. What we have done is purchase long-term transmission rights to allow us to use transmission lines from the Northwest as well as across the different DC interconnection lines. So I think there's 7 or 8 in the US. There's 3 that are right in the Colorado area, 1 in South Dakota. We own rights across those ties, be able to bring power from Nebraska and over from the east into Colorado. And then also, like I mentioned, from the Northwest, so Washington, Oregon, Montana, move it down here as needed. So that's what I was, and please interrupt if there's questions, if there's something that is not clear on that.
Kathy, so right now, all of the loads that we are serving in Colorado and New Mexico are all network customers of either PNM, Western Area Power. Part of them have to have dual network services because they do use a little bit of tri-states transmission. But that they all have their network contracts with the local balancing authorities. What Andrew's talking about is we've procured transmission outside of the system from the Pacific Northwest down in from Wyoming. We have some transmission procured through the ties that are going into Kansas and the SPS, SPP power pool. We have some firm transmission from Western Area Power from Four Corners to be able to bring it up from the south to serve our loads. Because remember, all of our loads are in either Colorado and New Mexico right now. And so it's where we put our generation is very, very critical to us. So, but all of the loads we serve are currently network transmission customers of, public service or somebody else until we become an RTO, which is probably, down the road, 3 years away, 4 years away, 5 years away, who knows?
And we would expect if Canyon City did their own municipalization, they would also have network service under Black Hills, I would assume. So to kind of give you a few case studies, I mentioned these earlier. Kit Carson was the first one to leave, request an exit and leave Tri-State. We were fortunate enough to win the bid. Their main concern were, the Tri-State had no flexibility, very high costs. So that when they partnered with Guzman, we did pay their exit fee, which is actually paid out this next year, and they'll have some of the lowest rates in the West. They expect savings between 50 and 70 million based on the Tri-State. But the biggest thing I think is they had a mandate goal for their community of 100% daytime solar. Tri-State allowed 5%. So we were able to make an agreement with them, a customized agreement, to allow them to have as much daytime solar as they wanted. We also facilitated the RFP form, helped them through that process, being that they're new to the industry, they didn't know exactly how to go about that. And I think in the next Q1 of next year, Q2 of next year, they're going to meet this goal. They're going to have 100% daytime solar for all their daytime hours. And we're serving everything around it.
So basically, Kit Carson, though, was already a municipal in a sense.
That's right.
And so basically, all they had to do was switch providers for wholesale.
That is correct.
So they didn't have to create a whole
That is
inner workings for the city itself.
Yeah, that is accurate. And this is meant more or less being, can I give you examples of customization that we're able to do out of the box thinking to help customers meet their goals. I'll talk specifically about municipalization efforts and things we can help with the city do as well. So the second one, again, we'll go high level just so for timing. Holy Cross wants 100% renewable. They own part of Comanche Coal. So there's no way to do that. So we worked out a customized solution where we swap it out. So we take their coal and we give them renewable. That's really the simplest form of that. And again, just being customized, being flexible to be able to help them meet their needs. The last is Delta Machos, like I mentioned earlier. They also exited, and they are an existing cooperative. We helped them. We paid their exit fee. They have a 12-year agreement with us. And this last year, they were able to, like I mentioned earlier, double their revenue from the previous year in just a half a year. So you can expect what 2022 looked like, 4 or 5 times already.
So they're all municipalized.
Those are all cooperatives. So they are, yeah. So they're like a core. They're already set up. So specific to Kathy's question about kind of municipalization, we are currently working with the city of Sapporo, which is about half the size of you guys, and the city of Bloomfield in New Mexico, both of them looking to municipalize. I think we're probably, halfway, 3/4 the way through. For both of them, expect to start serving them in, say, late 22, 23 timeframe. But we've helped through that whole process. We don't do everything in-house. We bring in third-party consultants. We also help 2 tribes create tribal utility authorities. So tribal utility authority is very much like municipalization. You have to go and buy the infrastructure. You have to negotiate. You have to do everything as like municipalization, but it's a tribe doing it. And we've helped 2 tribes in New Mexico do that. Hickory Apache Nation, which we started serving since about 2017. And then a Pueblo of Acoma, which they're 2 megawatt loads. So kind of give you an idea of using commitment. They're 2 megawatt load, which is very small. You guys are probably 100, if not large, 100% or larger than them. We've been working with them since 2017 to municipal. So Guzman's in it for more than just a profit center. It's really trying to do good for the communities, do good for rural. Our CEO is actually born and raised in Utah, coal mining family. So he has a significant appreciation for the struggles of rural communities and everything like that. And we feel very strongly that for our mission, that's really what Guzman's made for, is working with disadvantaged areas and trying to help them achieve sovereignty and economic benefits, through different mechanisms. So I put together this comparison table. I had an outside attorney also look at it just to make sure I didn't state anything incorrectly, but I was going to go through it. And this is, I think, the key one where you guys should focus in on. I tried to show the benefits of municipalization versus cooperative versus IOU, and try to put it into kind of an easy format for everyone to understand. So I'll go through them. Please, again, stop me, ask questions, but it's really meant to be, again, educational, to show where things are, or where things lie. So first one, duty to whom? So under municipalization, as it says there, your duty is, number one, your citizens. Your citizens, in lesser extent, own the municipality. So you have a duty to make sure you do what's best for them. Whereas under a cooperative, members, when I say members, it's more the boards of the different municipalities or the boards of the cities. They don't really get down to the level of a citizen. The board should be, or the members should be, the voice of the citizens, but it's not down to that level. And then an investor-owned utility, their duty is primarily to the shareholder. They do obviously work with communities and they do benefit communities, but at the end of the day, their shareholders are all the ultimate ones that they have to answer to for any decisions they make or even mistakes they make. And then then there's different things that happen, obviously, in that realm. Paying taxes. Municipality doesn't pay on, cooperatives don't. Investor owns do have to, based on whatever their tax brackets are. So one of the questions, what if you went forward with any of these options? What if you change your mind? So if you did a municipality, you could always sell it. You could join a co-op. At that time, you have the optionality to do that. However, you do a cooperative day one, you have to pay an exit fee to exit, and that's usually determined by the board underneath either a bylaws or some other mechanism. And well, right now you're under investor owned. There's if you change your mind there, you have the other 2 options. It's not really applicable. Regulated, the voters regulate and control municipality. They vote in the boards. They get involved with the rate cases. They are regulated by your neighbors. Where the co-op is regulated by a board, which is usually 1 or 2 from each of your different member cities. So you have a voice of one amongst many. And then usually the investor owns are regulated by the Public Utility Commission. The Colorado State has some new energy laws that are coming into play. And I don't know specifically each one of them by heart here, but how it pertains to municipalization, Canyon gets to choose what type of energy they want in the power supply agreement. So whoever you decide to go with, if you decide to go municipalization, you can tell that provider, I want X% renewables. And that'll be part of like an RFP process or a contracting process. Under a co-op, if a co-op's large enough, they have to file a clean energy plan. And I don't know how big a core is or anything like that. I know like United Power is large enough to have to do this. But also under the clean energy laws, it would be on a more of a board situation or board determination, not on individual communities of what they want in the resource mix. So it's more of a pooled approach. So you may want 100% renewable, but all your other neighbors don't, or all your other members don't, you would be outruled. Investor owned, it's all regulated by the PUC for the clean energy plans. I'm going to speculate, and it could be wrong, John can even correct me. Don't know how the cost is going to be. I mean, anytime you get regulations, it always seems like it increases costs. I don't know what this is going to do. We haven't seen the writing. We haven't seen numbers yet around it. But if the PUC is controlling it and you have no say in it, kind of limits your control of what impact you can have. So rate control, under municipality, the city has the rate control. They can create rates for economic development, for disadvantaged. Some cities even give free power to all the city buildings. So I mean, you guys control it. You want, say a data center wants to move in here and you can give them a rate, you can now do that. Under cooperative, it is usually complicated and lengthy tariffs. It's bylaws, board approvals, so it's not as seamless. Can it be done? Yes, of course. It's just not as seamless as Canyon themselves, the Canyon citizens deciding on a rate. And then for investor owned, you go under the Public Utility Commission. Decision control under municipality, it's 100%. Under cooperative, you have one vote, like I mentioned earlier, among many, depending on how many board members or how many members there are. And then really under investor owned, you really don't have any direct decision control. You can definitely talk about it, but at the end of the day, it's PUC and the investor owned that makes the decisions. Economic development, right? I mentioned that earlier. Canyon can decide whatever they want. They can give benefits to a new company coming in. Under co-op, board decides, and then under the PUC or under investor owned, the PUC decides, and all that legality around that. Governance, small board set up by the city, by the voters. Which good about that is, if a board is not doing well, they get voted up. So that kind of thing. So it gives you some perspective that if the city doesn't think the community is doing well, they can vote that person out to get new ideas in there. Under a co-op, it's a board of directors elected by the bylaws. Don't know specifically what usually the bylaws say. We work with different co-ops in different states. Some of their board members have been on the board for 30 years. So kind of give you an idea on some things. For investor owned board of directors and shareholders usually have the same. So general funds. So under a municipality, and I have some more paper, which I'll leave for you guys when we leave here today. But the profits are given back to the city. So depending on how you want to do your rates, you can pay the profits either a percentage or however the city decides to do it. You give profits back to the general fund, which can be used to fund parks, schools, whatever the city wants to. So it's pretty unique. You control your destiny on that side. Under a cooperative, there's capital credits that are usually given, and I don't know specifically how those are distributed or how those are figured, but it's not as straightforward as you guys deciding how much money goes back to the city. And then under investor owned, there's franchise fee that goes in, that's paid by the investor owned to the city for that. Outreach management, this would be local. So if there's an outreach down here, you guys take care of Canyon. That's your number one objective. And that's where all the linemen and everything will be focused on getting power back onto the local region, where co-ops and even investor owned, it's more broad. They have a lot more customers, they have a lot more service territory. So you don't get the sole focus on that. It's more regional. They do have obviously more people to help bring lights on, but it is still a regional approach. They go to try to get the most impact as first. So it might not be number one in their mind, it might be 2 or 3 type of thing. Legality under municipalization, Canyon has the right to municipalize. Under cooperative, the way we understand it is that Black Hills would have to be willing to sell basically the franchise over to a cooperative. And other than that, I don't know of any other legal path. And when like I said, I might be wrong on that, but that's how we understood it.
I don't know. I was just gonna say, can you say more about that? But maybe that's something we just need to find out. more
Yeah.
about it, because I really don't know that distinction. I don't know if you do or.
Yeah, and I don't have an answer. Yeah, we would probably take more legal work to look at that. It was understood that they couldn't just, it's not straightforward like municipalization. In municipalization, you have a right. I don't think there's anything that's said that there's a right to leave Black Hills and join a cooperative.
So this might, since Core Electric is working on something right now. We don't quite know what that's gonna look like, but that would be certainly something I would think we would want them to address.
I would agree with that.
That if
Yeah.
it's not there, it's like there's a hole in whatever they present. to the
Yeah.
city.
You know, Emily, I would imagine that Core has that answer. They wouldn't be spending time and money coming down here and looking at you guys if there wasn't a path for them to get to either buy the franchise from Black Hills. So I would imagine the answer is yes, there's a path. The guys up at Core are extremely intelligent,
Yeah,
just
they
like
are.
Black Hills.
Yeah.
So I'm sure if that's the path you guys decide to go, that there is a path that you would be able to go.
Yeah, this is not just for,
I was gonna
Black
say
Hills-
that that's kind of a legal question,
Yeah.
that I believe that we are differing in our opinions.
yeah, we don't know how.
Go figure.
Yeah, and this is not to be negative on Black Hills or Core,
No,
both
not at all.
are very good companies. My goal is just to show a table with options. So I never want to come
But
across that we're
it's
trying to,
helpful to us to just see this
Yes.
list of it, because then we know there's things that we need to learn more.
right,
Okay, so you talked about verify or renewables earlier.
Yep.
So say Canyon City decide they want 80% renewables. But there's other people on the system. I mean, you guys just don't have power coming from wherever into Canyon City, right?
we can't, I mean, we'd be building stuff that's local to the region, yeah.
Well, my question was, not that anybody doesn't do what they say they're going to. But how do you verify the 80% renewables?
No, great question. So in our contract, we would obviously have it written out that we're obligated to provide that. And then there are tools, either through what they call electronic tags, which track power delivery from a generator to load. And then they have tracking tools, it's called the Regis is what it's called. But it tracks the RECs, renewable energy credits. So if you want 80%, our energy supply based on the tracking of the tag and of the RECs in this Regis would be meeting the 80% requirement. So we do that for customers right now. I mean, ARPA is one that we're doing that with other customers that have certain levels of renewable or GHG reduction requirements. We're doing that today. So we'd be able to track the electrons coming into the system.
How close are you to being maxed out on clean energy as far as what you have available today?
Well, we'll be building. So we're in the process of building, like I mentioned earlier, about $1 billion of contracted assets in New Mexico and Colorado. The ones that are announced in public are 155 megawatt solar down by Durango, 137 megawatt down in the southwest, 80 megawatts in the Delta Montrose area, and 145 megawatt wind north of Denver. We're still evaluating some stuff down at Midway as well as up in the Craig region. And we're also evaluating battery storage to make that renewable penetration. So to your question, if we're looking at just a static portfolio, we get maxed out pretty fast. But as we bring new customers in, we build new assets. We have, and I agree with this approach. The company approach is you get a customer that wants to get power from Guzman, then you go build the assets and not vice versa, because you don't know what the customer wants. You don't know what their distributed generation desire is, or even their carbon or their renewable desire. So you may not always build renewables. You may want, maybe they want a gas unit. So we really customize a plan specific to the customer. And that's why it makes it harder for us to build.
Remember, you build first and hope the customers.
Correct.
Yeah.
That force Plains
That could be
Electric
that
down in New
stranded
Mexico
asset.
into bankruptcy. If you remember Colorado Ute, of
Yep.
course, Colorado Ute into bankruptcy.
Yep.
And so so going back to what Andrew was saying, going back to your question, is right now we have 36 megawatts of PPAs coming out of the San Juan generation, which gets retired in July of 2022. And we have approximately 70 megawatts of coal generation coming out of the Craig units, which we know are going away in 2025. So post 2025, the only coal that we will have in the portfolio will be our Comanche generation that we maintain for Holy Cross. It still belongs to Holy Cross. They own 60 megawatts out of that plant. We just manage it for them. So we're going to have 60 megawatts of coal in the portfolio. We do have the right to run that all the way down to 24 megawatts is the minimum we have to take from there. But after that, we have no coal in our portfolio. And so I'm not saying that we're big renewable guys. All I'm saying is that the new generation these days is going to be wind, solar, and we are going to have to put in some gas units. And even in the models that we have right now, our gas units are maybe running 20% of the time, but 20% of the time, when the wind's not blowing, the sun's not shining, we need those damn gas
Oh, yeah.
units. So we're not 100% going with renewables. We know we have to have some kind of base load generation to serve our customers.
So when, for example, in the DMEA, you're building somewhere in that area, right?
Yeah, 80 megawatts.
And so that just kind of becomes part of your generation system.
Correct.
And then, as you described earlier, then if they want X% renewable, then you show them how they're getting that. whether
They
it's
actually have
from that-
partial ownership of that facility.
They
They do.
Okay.
So the whole portfolio, the whole project goes into our portfolio, but they have a slice of it, so they deliver some directly to them.
At the risk of speaking for the city, which I'm not, I should say the citizens, probably Canyon's biggest interest is lower rates.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean that how we get those lower rates with the generation, we would of course like to have cleaner energy, but that's just,
Yeah.
that's obviously an important thing, but right now, it's kind of like you get that cleaner energy with a much lower rate and yay.
Right.
So that's kind of
You know,
what.
Kathy, every one of the loads that we serve are a little bit different. With
Sure.
Kit Carson, their board, their mandate was that we want more renewables on the system. And so if you go back to when Kit Carson started procuring the renewables, they start putting in the solar, it's expensive.
Yeah,
I mean, they have some expensive generation on their system. One, is they were early entries into the solar world. Two, they build smaller arrays in each service territory of their customers. So they're not getting the benefits of utility of size solar. And then you'll have another board that says, we don't care about renewables. Our number one goal right now is to get cheaper rates. Kit Carson was, we want more renewables right now. Holy Cross, they want more renewables right now. And so, they've also put in some battery storage. So everybody's just a little bit different. Depends on what your city council wants or what your board wants. So everybody's just a little bit different. Across the board, though, the thing that's always, the three bullets are always, how are you going to serve my load reliably?
Mhm.
Number two is price. Number three, of course, is going to be how much renewables you have on your system. The one and two can flop back and forth,
sure.
but those are the three things you hear all the time.
So can you say a little more about the DMAA? Was it like by contract or however that they became part owners, or what did that look like? Maybe just a little bit more detail.
It was contractual. And it was contractual. So we told Delta Montrose that out of their entire 250,000 megawatts, whatever their load is that we will allow you to put in a certain percentage of your load will come directly from the developer at the developer price. So you're buying, let's just say 50,000 megawatt hours a year, not from Guzman Energy at our rate. You're buying it right from the developer at 2.1 cents or 2.5 cents, whatever it may be. So we allowed that in our contract, whereas a lot of them, if you're under the tri-state, or if you're under a Black Hills, or if you're under a public service company in Colorado, they wouldn't allow you to buy anything. They supply everything. So times have just changed. It started with Kit Carson. hell, the little city of Aztec, New Mexico, it's a little 6 megawatt load. They wanted 1 megawatt of solar. So we went in and put in 1 megawatt of solar for them. We actually own that 1 megawatt of solar. And then when it's the PPA is finished, they'll take that over. But everybody's just a little bit different. But that 1 megawatt of solar, it's directly at the contract rate for the solar, which is higher than the Guzman rate. But that's what they wanted. That's what their citizens wanted. Kit Carson, they wanted energy independence. That was the big push for them. So we have 15 megawatts coming on in Taos this year with battery storage. That comes on in Q1 of this year. It was supposed to be on here in November, but a shortage of labor and materials pushed it back about a quarter. So we've done the same thing. You can talk to Dan up at the City of Fountain. It's the same thing. Well, you can read his contract. It's the Guzman contract. It's public knowledge. In there, we're allowing them to put in X amount of generation, either behind the meter or they can partner with us on utility scale for a certain percentage of their load.
So, say you get a contract with Canyon City and it's a 10-year contract,
Yes, sir.
okay? And at the time the contract is made, they want 50% renewables. 10 years down the road, we all know council changes, people in town change or whatever. So they're going more for lower rates, let's say. How do you accommodate that versus more renewables?
So being that we have a portfolio approach, we're able to work with customers on changing dynamics of their power supply needs. We did that with Kit Carson. Day one, they didn't have this aspiration for the 100%. I don't know, 2 years into the contract, they came back and said, hey, we need this 100%. We were able to renegotiate a contract that made it work. So, Guzman really looks to be a partner. And I always make this joke, when you go into an agreement, with these agreements are 10 to 20 years long, it's like a marriage. If you screw up day one, it's going to be hell to pay for the next 10 to 20 years, right? So we try to get everything right the first day. That means flexibility. It means working with the customer. It means listening to the customers, what they need. And if there's changes down the road, we do it. We just have to get aligned. If the lower rates, we look at lower rates. So I can't give you an exact answer how that would work, but it's just a commitment that we do work with you. We do try to figure out a solution that meets what the customer wants.
Let's take your question. Let's break it down into 2 questions. So the first question is, City Council wants to be 50 over the next 10 years. We want to be 50% renewables. Second question is that we want to be 50% renewables. We want to do it at 4.1 cents. All that is known, right? So we can accommodate that. At the end of the 10 years, you now say that we need more than 50% renewables. We want 80% renewables. It's all going to be a new contract, right? So it really is 2 different questions. City Council says we want 50% renewables, and our rate has to be 4.1 cents. In order for us to municipalize, we know that we have to have a maximum. We have to have some kind of a target here, right? And so it's going to be everything that is known. If the only thing that would change during that 10-year period is if the state was to come in and say, okay, right now the goal is 33%. You guys have to be 33% renewable to make the state mandates. And that changes in the Guzman contract. We say that we will, if you want 30%, we will give you 30%. If the law says you have to go up to 40% renewables, we will make sure you are always compliant with whatever the state law is. Does that make sense?
Very flexible is really what we're driving at. We have the ability.
Yes, Mr. Andrews. Hey, wait a minute. Is it an easy question or a hard question? I gotta figure if I'm going to answer this or if Andrew.
It's an update question. Luis Reyes, who's the CEO of Kit Carson, when I interviewed him for a case study about 4 years ago, which was about 2 years after the 2016 breakaway from Tri-State. At that time, he said that the board or the members had decided to bite the bullet and not lower rates much in the beginning, but do their solar diversification and their eventually some level of batteries up front and do all the payoff of the buyout that they owe to you up front, and that by 2022, which would be 6 years later, he said they were going to be able to lower rates 30 to 40% to customers. Is the update question is that still does that sound like it's on track? Because we're much closer than 4 years.
They have 8 months to go. They have 8 months to go, and that $37 million debt is
Yeah.
paid for. And their rate goes down to 4.1 cents
From what it is today, which is.
higher.
Come on, come on.
Well, that's just, I mean,
No, no,
Is it
we're not talking-
ballpark 30, 40% kind of thing that you talked about? or-
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, that's
It's-
what I
I mean, do the
thought, but I-
math, simple math. Take $37 million divided by, 72 months. And take that, whatever that is, it's probably 2.2 cents of debt that's on there.
And once the debt is wiped out after
That's
6 year
that's
fast
right.
payoff.
But again, everybody's different. Delta Montrose, their debt service is covered in a 12-year period. Kit Carson said, no, we want to be done in 6 months or in 6 years. And so they bit the bullet and they did it. I mean, they take a lot of heat from it.
I was gonna say, I would assume that the rates actually went up from what they were paying before they went with you folks.
No,
Yeah,
They were equal to or slightly more than what they were paying
Okay,
Tri-State.
so it wasn't a huge,
Right,
Yeah.
and it's because of, and so there's several things there's probably 3 major things that just means that we're talking about Kit Carson, when we, okay if I share this with you, is that they lost a large load. They lost a quest of money down there. They're putting in more solar on their system that is higher than the Guzman rate, right? So in the summertime, they're getting a lot more generation coming out at, let's just say $60 a megawatt hour, as opposed to the Guzman rate of $42, right? And then when they don't have enough load, they still have to service that $37 million worth of debt.
right,
And so they're paying for the $37 million worth of debt. They're paying more for the solar generation and taking less megawatts from Guzman Energy. So in the summertime, their rates, they pass through things on there. They have a fuel clause adjustment.
But what was the Tri-State wholesale rate? What
yeah.
Tri-State's rate was like 75 or 80
70,
bucks.
Yeah, they were
75%.
with Kit Carson. Remember, there's no such thing as a tri-state rate, right? Every member has a different rate. It's, your generation demand, transmission demand, then you take total amount of megawatts that is served or total amount of load, divide it all by that number and you come up with your tri-state rate. And so Kit Carson's, because of their load factor, they were approximately right at 8 cents is what they were paying Tri-State. And so with Guzman, they were right at 7.9 cents with the debt service, and they have to have a dual network agreement too. So they're paying transmission to both Tri-State and to PNM.
So my question would be so we're in an investor-owned situation. And you said earlier that the only way for us to kind of break away from that is if Black Hills is willing to sell. Is that the case 100%?
Not our municipalization. There's other legal ways to pass forward, condemnation, I think there's actually a legal process for municipalization. What I was thinking is, I don't know if that's the same true for co-op. Because a co-op is really, the city that won't be owning it really anything, right? Co-op's gonna own it. So they have to have a willing party or some other legal path to force Black Hills to sell it. And I don't know if that exists in co-op. I know.
Well,
it
that's why
exists in
we turned down the franchise. So we
Yeah.
do not have a franchise at this moment. So that's one of the lists of many things that we have.
And it may be simple for co-op. I don't know that.
But
There's nothing simple.
Even
No,
though
that's
Black Hills, even though Black Hills doesn't have a franchise with you right now, they're still paying that franchise fee.
No,
They don't pay the franchise fee?
no, the city
The
decided.
city
the-
chose to stop collecting it.
Okay, guys, what?
I'm sorry.
No,
I said the city chose to stop collecting it, so we complied with their request.
We chose to stop collecting it because that was one of the major reasons why people voted against the franchise, was because of the franchise fee.
Yeah.
Wow. That's what I hear.
And of course, Black Hills says, if you don't want to charge us, we're not gonna pay you. We're just gonna use your land to serve your right of ways. Got it. So I think Andrew will probably get to this, is that I think probably one of the first things that has to be done is you have to develop a pro forma, right? And what you're doing is that Under municipalization, it is your revenue to the city greater than the franchise fee we're getting from Black Hills? Right? And so if you could, we can do it two ways. You can do a pro forma and leave your retail rates the same as the Black Hills retail rates. And then you can take your, under municipalization, say, if we leave our retail rates the same right now with a 4.1 cent wholesale cost, what is the revenue to the city compared to the franchise fee that we're getting right now? You compare those two, and I think you're gonna be surprised on how great it is. And like I say, you can ask, Dan Blankenship or Kenny George down at the city of Aztec. And it's just what you decide to do. Then you're gonna have to go a little bit further. You're gonna have to go, we're gonna have to do a comparison that says, okay, we know what the Black Hills retail rates are. What are the core retail rates? And then compare at a 4.2, let's say you leave those rates the same, and you can get a wholesale rate from Guzman at 4.2 cents, 4.5 cents, whatever it may be. What are the revenues to the city that we can use for infrastructure, into the general
And right
fund?
now we have none.
Into the
Right.
general, right?
Right now we have none because while rates were definitely one of the major reasons that people voted against the franchise, there were also things like we were collecting the franchise fee and taxes.
Yeah.
So people felt that it was getting double dipped.
Right.
And that was one of the big reasons why they voted down the franchise agreement.
A good point that the city still gets a sales tax, which was, roughly equivalent, I don't know the dollar amount, but they were collecting both. So that was 6%, so now it's 3%.
You know what's interesting too, when we did the comparison between Excel's and Black Hills rates, the franchise fee is included in the base rate of Excel. You don't have a line item on your bill.
No, I don't know. When we get an Excel bill, we're outside the town limits of Gregory.
So you don't pay one anyway. So yeah. That's interesting.
So excess revenue, what you guys, and you just talked about, right?
Yes.
So if the city has excess revenue, myself as a consumer, I want the break. I don't want to leave it with the city. Sorry.
The city, yeah.
I mean, what's the purpose of it?
Right.
If you're going to pay the same rate, somebody else is getting the break. Sorry.
Absolutely. That's the city council's decision. Do we want to lower our retail rate to the houses, to the commercial residents? That's the decision you would make.
And that's one of those where you have the option of hopefully lowering the rate some, but still maybe keeping enough to think about some other improvements within the city. It
Right.
becomes a balancing act of helping the citizen as well as helping the city.
That's right.
And it becomes kind of, I would assume, a little bit like the city's water fund, which is an enterprise fund. It's separate. It has to have its own separate costs and so forth. And so, but it's a city decision ultimately, how you balance all that out and what you charge and how quickly do you, if you municipalize, how quickly do you want to pay off your debt or not? So those are all city decisions.
And you have elections.
Right.
That's
So if
true.
you don't like what the city's doing,
Depending if it's a city
It's
or
a good
national.
point. Yeah.
the city would be controlling all that, so.
Yeah.
So to keep in line with like what Cora was recommending on the feasibility study, we also want to offer a feasibility study. So we don't need to go through each line item. I'll leave the papers with you, but wanted to show you, it's mostly a 4-step process for feasibility study. So feasibility study is what I call phase 1. That just shows if it makes sense to move forward in this municipality. It does not tell you the cost, the exit, a separation study, the legal setup. Those are all of phase 2, 3, 4 maybe. But so the very first phase, and I believe this is in line with what CORE's offering, and this is why we wanted to get this out there for you, so you really could compare, this is what CORE's offering, this is what a municipalization looks like. So that's why I included this. But under the proposals, so option 1 is what we sent to you guys previously, was a letter of intent. Guzman's would pay up to about $200,000 for municipalization studies. That should have encompassed all legal work, all the studies I just mentioned, underneath that 200,000. For us putting our skin in the game and doing that, we requested right of first refusal for if the city decided to go with someone else, and also then reimbursement for whoever the other energy supplier was. Sound like the city didn't like that because of that exclusivity nature. You might have to do an RFP. We can massage that if you still want us to look at doing the full $200,000 investment. Or option two, we would pay for a third-party phase one feasibility study, and there's no exclusivity. A phase one is roughly $50,000. We'd commit to doing that just so you have apples to apples when you're looking at a cooperative versus municipality. And we're willing to do that. And similar to, I'd like to see if we could get that in front of the city, get that approved, and then we can get moving on getting this done.
Ryan, is that the process? Does the committee have to present to council for the study?
Actually, Andrew, would you be providing a formal either letter or something outlining the different options?
Yes, yep. We can revise option one as option one, and then we'll include an option two with no exclusivity or anything. This is meant to, so you have two feasibility studies and you're looking to make a decision, co-op or municipalization, and then you can really compare apples to apples. I think without the study, you have no way of knowing which is the better path.
Sure.
I think
so-
number one, without a doubt, you have to have at least a pro forma that shows you just what revenues look like compared to what you're getting from a franchise fee. At least you can see, in black and white, based upon the same retail rates, you have to have that as and we'll absorb that cost.
Yeah.
For just the pro forma.
Yeah. So
I just, because you guys can't make an educated decision without the pro forma. Go ahead, Ryan, I'm sorry.
no, that's all right. Brandon, to answer your question, so it depends on how the letter comes in. If it comes to the city council directly, or if it comes to the committee, if it bypasses the committee and goes to city council is likely going to refer it back to the committee for analysis, and then the committee's going to make a recommendation back to city council for some type of formal action.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So when I was on the call with McClure was here, the council committee here made a vote that same day, moved it. So they had a letter already presented to you guys, or was that?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll get that prepared then and get that over. And who should I send it to, or?
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can send it to me and I can get it to the committee.
Okay,
Great.
So under municipalization, does that mean that the city takes care of the infrastructure?
it does.
Oh, yeah.
You don't necessarily have to take care of day one. There's third-party contracting services. We have relationships with, different cities and different co-ops, so we're more than happy to take care of it as well under a contract basis. If you didn't want to take care of day one, so.
It's no different than a power agency or even a distribution co-op, right? The distribution co-op, they take care of all of distribution down to the retail level. Power agency like the city of Arkansas River Power Authority, they are serving 7 municipals. And so I don't think it's as daunting as you think it is.
So if
And
the city,
good paying jobs.
if the city doesn't do it, then they have to hire a third-party company or whatever to maintain their lines.
Well, it's no different than kind of what you're doing now, right? I mean, you're paying Black Hills or even our core, you're paying them, they're a third party that's maintaining it. You just don't see it as a separate contract.
What you have to do is just throwing out, say, San Isabel, because they're the closest. You pay for your wholesale, and then you pay them for the maintenance and everything that way. And what you hope is that the two costs come to be less than what we're paying Black Hills.
Yeah.
What you hope.
Well, that's.
And that's part of the study.
Yeah, that's where the study comes in.
Definitely. I mean, if it's not less, it doesn't save you money. It doesn't make sense, right?
I
mean,
don't see us hiring linemen, and I don't see us hiring trucks, and I don't see us, but there's other options out there to be what I call a hybrid.
Yeah.
I mean, the little tiny village of that Pueblo of Acoma, Hickory Apache Nation, City of Aztec. City of Aztec is a good example. They hired a utility director from Glenwood Springs, which is a municipalization. He came in there. I think he hired, he has 3 bucket trucks, has some linemen under him, and it's good paying jobs, and you control your own destiny.
I would not do it the way the town of Center does theirs, but that's just me, because Public Service of Colorado ended up going in every so often, just out of the goodness of our heart, and redoing things the proper way. So it's one of those to where you want to set it up right the first time, rather than, they're a municipal, and they at one time had a really good guy that knew the gas system side of it, which we're not talking. But then they brought in, he retired, and then, went to heck in a handbasket. So you have to make sure of what we're doing and the analysis that how it works. Right. So that's
Steve?
I think the example of Hermiston, Oregon, when they broke away, is probably one of the more interesting ones. And I think the committee ought to look at it. Hermiston, they hired one guy to run the electric utility. He did the wholesale power stuff and DSM, demand side management programs. Everything else was third party to the adjacent co-op. And so they do all the service. So they were running right up to it anyway. And so they provide 100% of the maintenance and such, and still have lower rates. I don't know how much lower. I haven't checked back with them. We did this case study about 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, but it was an interesting case study.
Yeah.
You guys probably are familiar.
A separate agreement with Reg. Have Reg do your distribution for you.
And we can help through that. I mean, if the decision was to go, municipalization, you're not going to say, today I'm deciding, tomorrow we're starting.
I'm
It's a
sure
3
his
to 4
ears
year.
are probably
Yeah.
burning, having gone through Pueblo, but it's like, yeah, that's an option.
Yeah.
Is it possible to get a copy of
Yeah,
yours?
I have all the copies here. So plus some additional stuff from American Public Power. They have a benefits of public power brochure, and I included that as well. So I'll give you all that.
Old age and eyesight.
Well, that's everything for Guzman today. Any other questions, comments? But so what I heard, I need to get the letter updated, get that over to Ryan, and then next month, next week, or what's the process?
Yeah, we need 2 meetings,
We
so.
can do an email vote if we wanted to get things moving faster.
Yeah, and the only reason I like the expedite, because obviously Core has probably a 2
Yeah.
month. If they get theirs done in 120 days, and it takes us 120 days, we're not going to be aligned. So I don't want to delay your other processes.
Sure.
At a minimum, let's get the pro forma done as soon as we can, so you guys can see the financial impacts to the city. And I think that would be step one. I think to do a real good separation agreement, we're gonna have to get an engineering firm, because I'm sure Black Hills isn't going to share all the schematics with you on how to distribute it and all the distribution lines. So we probably have to have boots on the ground for.
Yeah,
an
that's
engineering
phase
firm.
2.
They probably already called the city of Boulder. So
Well, this is very helpful in a variety of ways, but particularly hearing what you've done and hearing how each community that you've worked with, it's been a little different depending on what their goals and priorities are.
Absolutely.
And that you can help customize agreements with communities. And then the other piece too, which I felt like in this building house, I felt like that it's hard for us as committee members, lay people, for the most part, with a few exceptions, that it's hard for us to get our heads around municipalization. It sounds so daunting and expensive, et cetera, time consuming legal issues that I think it's helpful to at least get a grasp of that, and that there is a pathway, at least theoretically. And it, just the whole concept, and again, who knows where we will go as a city at this point, but the idea of having that self-determination.
Right.
And in the long run, being able to decide your own rates and maybe have a special economic development rate, for example, or whatever it is, just to have the power.
rates and fate.
Well, the intimidation fact comes from, you know, I have to run again for council in 23. You know, she's got 4 years fresh starting in January. But depending on the time frame, I might not get reelected, and then the next council might decide against municipalization. So there's all these other intimidation factors on how this can die on the vine at some point.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. Good point. Thank you.
You're welcome. I appreciate everyone's time today.
Thanks much for coming here and great to have the dialogue.
Steve Andrews, I'm a little disappointed in you today. There's no tough questions. Or maybe you're not on your game today.
We have another guest who came in from after we introduced everybody. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Not at all. My name is Bill Randall, and I'm a longtime resident of the city, and I'm here to be close to Brandon. We're going up to Colorado Springs with some discussion.
Friend of Brandon.
Do we have any more discussion?
In regard to this issue, we want to try to expedite once we get the written, proposal, the new one from Goose, or do we want to make a decision by email to forward that on to council so that we don't lose time, or what do folks think?
What do you think, Ryan? What do you think the best route is?
Yeah, I think, you know, depending on the extent of the letter, we can forward that out to the council or the committee members. And then maybe we can do two things via email. One is determine whether or not that proposal needs further discussion, or whether or not, you know, via email, they want to forward that to city council or not. I think it, you know, I don't want to say we're just going to directly forward it to city council. You know, there may be some items in there that we want to discuss first.
Yeah, I think at least some of us, maybe all of us, would be open to a special meeting if the timing helped.
Yeah, I have.
For sure. Probably should.
You know, are we all of a sudden needing to push things that quickly?
Well, I think right now it's just more about getting the information and making a decision based off that information in a special meeting. Is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be nice if we could have this and the four
Right.
proposals side
And
by
will we-
side, you know,
will we?
in a timely manner.
Will we get the court? You said 120 days for court?
And they have 120 days, so.
And they've already had, what, 30 days?
30 days.
So they got 3 more months to come up with a proposal. They do. Yeah.
That's worst case. I mean, I'm hoping I can push to get faster, but I just wanted to caveat that
We
it may take.
Sure.
Yeah, so our next scheduled meeting is for the 2 weeks from today, the 22nd.
Well, we'll look forward to receiving that once you get it, Ryan, and then we'll proceed from there. And we can communicate by email if we want to move for a special meeting, just to do this, or however we decide to do that.
We'll make it pretty, you know, the letter is easy, non-legal as we can too, so it's. Don't have to.
What, Francis will be going over it.
She'll
just be
definitely go over it.
adding her legal.
She's probably on the call, so.
I know, that's good
Francis
too.
will look at
Yeah, she'll have to look at it.
it.
Yeah, I don't
Just
send anything out that will turn.
Just a heads up, I do have a meeting the 15th at 10 a.m., another meeting. So I don't know if we could do it later or earlier if we decide to do a special meeting or a different day of the week.
Or by email or something. As far as,
When is John going to come back?
When's John back, Ryan?
He should be back by next week.
It'd be nice to have John involved with that too.
yeah, exactly.
Have his input and his direction of how he would like to go.
Okay.
Like I say, at a minimum, I would take a look at, let's move forward, at least the pro forma. So you can take a look at the mathematics between the different proposals and And like I say, we'll share that with, you can share it with Corey, you can share it with Black Hills. It's just mathematics.
Any other discussion?
Not specific to this or specific to this?
I think not specific.
Okay, I just have a general question. I know that you guys had talked about the last meeting that I missed. I saw that you were taking feedback on Kurt on the document that you're working on. How would you like, what's the timing for receiving that?
I think you have to ask John on that. I think
Okay,
you
because the
already
last I talked to John, he
about
said
that.
you guys were just kind of talking about how to get that feedback. So I'm just,
Okay, say again, feedback from you
so
folks?
the document that Kurt shared, I had I contacted Kurt and John because he's the chair and said, hey, there's a couple of things we think we'd like to clarify. And John's response was that they were going to take it up at the committee. You all talked about that. And then I've just not, I saw in the minutes, I think it said, get it back as soon as possible. I just don't know how do you want, like, do you want me to, if there were a
You've
Word
got-
document that I can offer edits on? that would
You've
be
got
really
a, you've
easy?
got a copy of the document as it is, and you can always send comments to us.
Okay, so you want to just comment on the PDF? I just thought it'd
Yeah,
be easier if it was
yeah,
a Word
sure.
I mean,
document.
you've got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You know, and that's separate from you guys making your presentation whenever you
Right.
can get it together
Right.
too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, when you have your presentation, it'd be good to have stuff in writing
Yeah.
also, like the other.
Yeah,
like
and,
the other-
and clarification is always good. Even though it might be. slightly-
John?
Yes, right?
Yeah, so originally that document was going to go as an interim report later this month. That's been pushed back to the vision meeting in January. And it's possible that might actually get pushed again into the vision meeting in February. So there's a little bit more time for a little bit of feedback. But you know, as soon as you can get it to us, the better.
Okay, thank you, Ryan.
Anything else?
If you see Kirk, tell him hi.
Will, see
He
him.
was Denver and I was Southern Colorado.
I was just talking to him on the phone as I walked in, so.
Yeah, please, I'm glad that things worked out.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, we just hired Steve Boynton too. I don't know if you remember. Steve came from Northern States Power
Okay, probably.
during that merger, but he's real good on the transmission.
That's great.
Yeah, we've turned it to like a little quasi, little utility.
Yeah, well, it's like when I went down to Black Hills.
Yeah, I think we're,
Denver,
if that's it, if there's no
before I
other
retired,
discussion,
it
I
was like
think that
half of
we're adjourned.
Fiesco people went.
Thank you.
Brandon, we have a question.
Sorry, I just been hearing all these other.
I know, some of us are unclear whether we have a firm date yet from Black Hills as far as your presentation.
I recommended a date to John. It is in January because we have a lot of folks out in the next,
Sure, this is
2-3.
that time of year.
yeah, it's that time of year. I mean, I think your next meeting falls the week of Thanksgiving. And then it's, so, yeah,
So would it be that first, well, second
January.
Monday? in
let me
January?
look at what I proposed that,
You said January 10th. I just looked up the email.
Oh, you
Okay.
Have it in front of me.
okay, thank you. Yeah, so I couldn't recall. January 10th is the
Okay.
date that I suggested.
Can we come to the Black Hills presentation?
Sure. It's a public meeting, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
public meeting.
Nice binders.
Sitting in the
I'll
back.
I'll reuse yours.
Sitting in the back and heckle.
You saw me heckle, right? I was well behaved, I think.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you.
Thanks for-
See you guys.
All right.
Break.
It's just down through Socorro.
So, there's my, if you have any questions, direct or anything.
Switch up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have fun in the springs. Nice day.
Yeah, we're gonna go look at some housing.
Oh, really?
Things shut down for about a year or two during madness.
Thanks for what you do.
Oh, yeah.
It's easy.
Always running in and running out.
It's okay. You need
But,
to.
yeah, and I figured it out. Tell me what you think that this
Thank you again.
needs to really.
See you back.
See y'all. It's been a while.
Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. See ya.
Have a good Thanksgiving if you don't see it. I guess I will.
Yeah. And you can ask questions.
Is it
And
just,
maybe at our next
Monday?
board,
Yeah. What else is new in your world?
I'm working on the anti-nuke.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a fan of having storage